You're here to tell me that the Columbus Blue Jackets' problem, this entire time of not having a number one center, going through these guys, rinsing, repeating, Duboising, etc., you had this problem of the team that lacked the absolute number one guy at sea. And you mean to tell me that he's been here the entire time? Let's talk today about the experiment that kicked off sometime last season on the Columbus Blue Jackets involving forward Patrik Laine, and how, for a brief period of time, he was actually placed at the center position. Now, to some of y'all newer fans that might be unaware, this is a pretty big deal because Patrik Laine, for the majority of his career as a draft-eligible guy to when he was taken second overall in 2016, and all the years after that, Patrik Laine was seen as this number one goal-scoring winger type of guy. You talk about players in the same mold as the Alex Ovechkins of the world, the big, heavy shots on the flank that could walk in and snipe it like nobody's business. And once in a while, they would bust out some pretty good power forward-like moves, using their size to their advantage and scoring goals in the process. Patrik Laine was always a goal-scoring machine, and with the Winnipeg Jets, things just didn't really work out all too well there. Situationally speaking, there were some rumors about him not really being respected in the locker room, other stuff like that went on. It wasn't really too pretty to see. But eventually, Laine was traded to Columbus, where he ended up becoming one of the top scoring guys on that team as well, and not surprisingly, he was a good player. I mean, Laine, in his first season in Columbus, sure, he had only 21 points in 45 games, but the seasons after that, he was pretty much a point-per-game guy. This previous year, he had 52 points in 55 games, 22 goals, 30 assists. Now, you could say that his goal-scoring days still kind of seem to be behind him now because, I mean, he had 36 goals in his first season, 44 the next, so you could see the inevitable decline as the years went on. But with the Laine experiment, wherein they took this goal-scoring winger and placed him at center last season, he seemed to have had a new chapter of his game completely unlocked today. Laine is 25, so there still is, let's just say, some time for him to grow and expand his skill set as an NHL player. But what happened in the previous season has actually carried over into this season's worth of play. If you remember, we did make a few videos earlier on in the offseason talking about how Patrik Laine had communicated with, I was going to say head coach, but no, former head coach of the Blue Jackets, Mike Babcock, and they talked about the center experiment, they talked about Laine being placed there, it was a thing they wanted to try out, and long story short, even though Babcock got the can, and I'm going to say got the can, I'm not going to say that he resigned, because come on, the guy wasn't welcome here anymore. Even though Babcock was gone, Patrik Laine still received his chops at the center position this preseason. And what you have as the result is the impact card for each game wherein he was the number one center. Take a look at this post made on the Columbus Blue Jackets subreddit, wherein Edo the Elephant posts about Laine's number one center impact card for each game. There are 6 games included in this sample, and it's a small sample size too, but the underlying numbers are loving Laine at number 1C. It's interesting how in games 5 to 6, the 2 games that he played at center last season, his defensive impact was negative, but he's far in the positive for each of the recent preseason games where he played center. He must have absorbed a lot of knowledge about his responsibilities down the middle over the summer, and I'm sure the new system helps too. Personally, I think he passes the eye test. Also, he's going to outperform his expected offensive metrics because his shot is so lethal, so these cards don't tell the full story. Excited to see where this goes. And included in this post are the game stat impact cards for Laine as the center against the Washington Capitals on October 7th. He was the best player on the Blue Jackets by far. On the game wherein the Blue Jackets beat the Sabres on October 4th, Laine was one of the top forwards, very positive impact. In the game against St. Louis, October 2nd, Laine was the second best player listed on here for forwards, and I mean, look, he still had a very positive game score as well. Against the Buffalo Sabres on September 30th, he was the best player on the team via offense, defense, production, and miscellaneous metrics. There's a lot here that supports the idea that says that Patrik Laine at center is actually really good. And the eye test goes out there and confirms that. You have a bunch of comments here saying that, yeah, I mean, he plays a really good game. Here's a summary that kind of goes over it all. Supreme Gentleman, and I dragged out the end because that's the guy's username, said, I have watched 0 preseason. How is the JG, Laine, and Marchenko line looking defensively? The reply says, I've watched passively, and to my untrained eye, they look decent. When they're on the ice, the team as a whole has been quicker to break up opposing offensive pressure, and they've been better at transitioning to the offensive zone. Laine forced 2 really good turnovers on back checks last night. It's worth mentioning that with Severson, Zach Werenski, and Provorov in the mix, they're moving the puck out of the zone quickly and stretching the ice more. If this works, it should lead to more controlled zone entries and offensive zone time, aka the best form of defense. There are more comments talking about how his defensive game actually has improved. Some are attributing this to John Tortorella because, hey, Torts had Laine back-checking and playing a 200-foot game, so it's easy to see the connection as to how that translates when he plays center. And then you have another comment here saying, I actually really like him at center, but he needs to work on his face-offs. Edo the Elephant says that I believe his preseason face-off percentage was better than Tage Thompson's from last year. I agree, but maybe he's ahead of the curve. Goodness, I am such a Laine propagandist. And if you wanted to see just how Patrik Laine did in the preseason, here's a post made by the NHL PR's Twitter account talking about the preseason leaders for most points. And if you go by points in the preseason, number 1 was Jesper Bratt, 9 points for the New Jersey Devils. Okay, cool. Second place, you have a tie between Eichel, Vegas, Jack Hughes, New Jersey again, and Patrik Laine. He is right there as the second most productive player in the preseason. Now, of course, this does not include games played. Not every player played every game, and of course, not every player is going to be trying out there. But for Patrik Laine in his sample to actually have 8 points in 5 games played as a center, that's a pretty good metric. I mean, I'm not going to say that he's going to score 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points in 5 games played. I'm not going to say, what's the math on that? Let's do 4 divvy 5 times 82. I'm not saying he's going to get 65 goals and 65 assists for 130 points. But if Patrik Laine can add a layer of stability to the center core while playing a good 200-foot game and producing points, then what the hell was that entire problem with Dubois there for? You should have made this trade for Laine years ago. You should have had this guy at center years ago. Johnny Gaudreau needs a number 1 center to play with? Okay, fine, you got Patrik Laine. Who in the NHL has a really big frame at center, great shot, good 200-foot game, and some nice passing too? I mean, the first guy that comes to my mind is Tage Thompson, but Tage is such a supreme beast of a hockey player that it's tough to really say that anybody projects like him. Ryan Getzlaf was a big center, but he's more of a playmaker. Patrik Laine, of course, has the shot that makes him more lethal than Getzlaf was as a goal scorer. I mean, what big centers are there that are actually good? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm showing my age here by not mentioning some random guy from the 90s that happened to be big and really good, but Patrik Laine could be one of the most unique players in the NHL should he make that transition from the wing to center successfully and play this 23-24 season at that position and actually do well. Well enough that he is one of the top players in the league in points. Well enough that the stat cards for each of the games show him as consistently one of the top 2 forwards on the team, if not the best player on the team, night in and night out. Even in the games last year, you saw there were some good moments, but of course the game scores in the stat cards were not great. But just seeing comparative to how the rest of the Blue Jackets are playing this season, Patrik Laine actually being the best net presence on that center core, that is a really good sign, and all we got to do now is just wait for him to start scoring goals like he did back in 2017, and the Blue Jackets are golden. Maybe you didn't need to draft Adam Fantilli. Maybe this guy should have been your center instead. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Patrik Laine being this good at center and this experiment in Columbus actually working? If you see this end up becoming the thing, how does that make you feel? How do you think the Winnipeg Jets fans feel about this? Thoughts in the comment section below about Patrik Laine at center being a success so far in the preseason, and let me know your thoughts as to how this is going to be affecting the Blue Jackets' chances for next year and beyond. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99, and bye.